Hi everyone. We talk about the concept of risk-based internal audit, the idea that we should align our efforts to the areas that present the greatest risk to the achievement of organisational objectives. What I don't see is a sort of appreciation of what I perceive to be the greatest risk of them all, which is macroeconomic risk. That can encompass, if I break it down into sort of like a PESTLE analysis, which most of you probably heard of by now, it's sort of political, economical, societal, technological, environmental and legal, a macroeconomic external environment analysis, of what's going on in the world outside of your organization, and are we basing our risk-based internal audit plans and programs on that to any degree, or are we too inwardly focused? Are we looking at what's the real root cause risks that could really stop us in our tracks? You can you can think about, a lot of people will be thinking about sort of financial sustainability in the current environment, with the economy being in relatively poor state. We'll be thinking about the loss of market demand, about economic shifts and things like that. I see a lot of people are thinking about that and where it's appropriate, especially more in the private sector, which is what I don't directly work with, but also anyone that has a market, they need to be monitoring this. It's quite obvious, but are you looking more widely outside of that? Are you thinking at a higher level? Are you looking at a national level? Are you looking at a policy level? So for me, being someone that works has a personal sort of portfolio in equities, something I've talked about before. One of the things that I'm constantly monitoring, naturally, and you sort of have to, is what are the fiscal and monetary policy decisions that we made? What's the financial exchange foreign exchange markets looking like? What are the sort of the central banks, like the Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, things like that, what are their balance sheets looking like? What are they buying? What are they selling? How are they controlling debt? How are they managing liquidity? All these factors, and this news is out there. It's not hidden away. You can look at what hedge fund managers are worried about, what actions they're taking to mitigate potential losses that they perceive, what's their sentiment, what's their risk tolerance. It's the same process, but my point is, the unfortunate reality we live with is that whatever happens at that level, with the banks and with government decisions and with activities by sort of big businesses and big organizations and things that take place like that, that's what's going to affect us at the lower level. If maybe we're not working with huge companies, maybe we're working with sort of medium-sized organizations, or we're not in the private sector, things like that. But it's the same thing if you look at it over the long term. Things like economic disparity lead to conflict, for example. We're set to, in the UK, keep rock bottom interest rates for the next 5 years or so, and looking at the possibility of going into negative interest rates. The result of low interest rates and negative interest rates, by extension, is that it usually directly correlates with economic disparity. Economic disparity directly correlates with conflict and sort of war and civil unrest and all sorts. So while we're thinking about, okay, how are we going to get through the next 3 months? How are we going to provide assurance? How are we going to be there? And sort of, it's all very well, but are we thinking long term about, hey, look, the world we live in just might not look the same in a year's time. We might be in some crazy position, and my observations are that there are ways to mitigate that if we know what we're looking for. What I see in, like I say, with hedge fund managers, what I see with government decision makers and things like that, they're looking at the actions that can be taken to sort of hedge yourself, to sort of protect yourself against the negative outcomes of decisions that are being made at the top of society. And what I don't see filtering down to the sort of lower level, to the everyday people, is these decisions, is basic financial management, external sort of appraisal and analysis and monitoring. And I just think, as internal auditors, if you want to tie it back to risk, can we bring this back to risk? Can we think about, well, what is going on at that very high level, at that national policymaker level, that that macroeconomic level, that what's going on in terms of trade relations, what's going on in terms of interest rates, what's going on in terms of foreign exchange rates, currency strength and valuation. There's often I often naturally, because I'm trying to sort of manage an equities portfolio, I'll be notified of things like currency strengthening and weakening and how that affects everything else. Well, that's okay day to day when you're just managing it, but these things can get out of hand really quick. And what I don't see is us thinking about that as a risk, I suppose. And I don't quite know how to express it. I guess I'm trying to do my best to sort of put it into words. But what you'll see basically is me engaged in a lot of these conversations, and it's not just because I'm managing like a little portfolio and trying to sort of keep myself safe. It's because I think we need to be educated as a profession as well. I think we need to be aware of these things and what these movements are, what they mean for us. The information's out there, and I just think it's important to maintain an awareness of it. Trying to keep an idea of what the world will look like in a year's time, in 2 years' time, in 3 years, 5 years. And are we preparing right now, doing the best we can to try and shelter from it? I've talked about it before, and I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent about sort of economic shifts. Is the market you're serving going to be there in a year's time? Things like that. Are we looking ahead of that? Are we getting engaged with that? If we are in the private sector, are we looking at market forces? Are we looking at market analysis, sort of expected economic trends and shifts, behavioural economics, sort of behaviour of people and buying habits and behaviours that are going on a sort of national level, people's expectations, people's sentiments, how confident they feel that they have a job in a year's time, or that might affect how much they're going to spend. Are these conversations being had? And I don't work in the private sector, to be honest, so maybe they are, and maybe I'm just ignorant to it, but I don't see people, having these discussions in internal audit. And I'm just putting it out there. I mean, I'm not trying to make it look bad as a profession. Like I say, most of my network are internal auditors. I'm just putting it out there as a concept. I don't know, maybe I've got the wrong end of the stick. Maybe someone will put me right. I'd welcome that if you can. Otherwise, if it's giving you anything to think about, it'd be interesting to maybe discuss it further with people. Just sort of open it up as a talking point, I suppose, and be interested to know if it is something that's being considered, and maybe I'm worrying about nothing, and maybe I'm just missing something. That'd be good to understand as well. Or if it is actually helpful to prompt this idea, then be interested in knowing that as well. So I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks.